All right, now Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana, when he delivers his budget speech this afternoon, it's not only me and you who will be watching. Investors from all over the world will also like to see what comes out of this crucial speech. Craig Pheiffer is the Chief Investment Strategist at Sasfin Wealth. He joins us now via Zoom to discuss this further. Thank you very much for your time here on eNCA. So how can government create a conducive environment for investors?
I think the key thing is really about getting growth going. Global watchers of the budget, investors will be wanting to see that balance between the revenue that government can get in versus what they need to spend on social grants, infrastructure, just uplifting the whole economy. And for the last, umpteen years now, we've been running a budget deficit. We've been spending more than we've been getting in. And that's led us to have to borrow and borrow significantly. Our debt levels have been ever increasing. So I think, investors will want to see, how and when those debt levels can come down, how we can improve that budget deficit, make it smaller. So in essence, we need to boost our tax revenues. But the way we want to do that is by making everybody more successful and the economy actually growing at a greater pace. So we'll be watching that quite keenly in this budget. What are the assumptions that we're going to see around growth for this coming year and for the years ahead, and whether that makes sense for the numbers that the government's projecting. But at its heart, we really need to put in place those actions, those policies that can drive growth. And if we get growth, we get prosperity, we get more economic activity, which means more money filtering through to government coffers and more for them to spend. So it's really all about getting growth going.
Now, obviously to be able to lure international investors could mean job creation for the country's economic stimulation as well. Do you think that it's possible at the rate at which we're going as a country to do this right now and today?
We definitely have to be doing something differently to what we have been doing, because we've only seen unemployment ticking up. Again, it comes back to growth. We're not growing at a fast enough pace to absorb all of those new entrants to the workforce. We've got a population of over 60 million people. In essence, you've got less than 16 million of those people actually gainfully employed in the formal sector. So it's about getting more and more inclusivity. Getting those jobs out there is around creating incentives for businesses to employ people, but they're only going to be doing that if the economy is growing. They need interest rates to come lower, so we need to make sure that our inflation scenario, which is more the realm of monetary policy, but we want to see inflation at a low point, so that we can see people more willing to borrow money to invest into the economy, to invest into factories that would then employ people. So it's a good mix of monetary policy and fiscal policy, but it's all about fiscal policy today and what government can do, and they do need to kind of loosen up the labour market, and take away a lot of the tight labour restrictions that we do have, to try and get more free-flowing moves into the labour market.
Now, we saw the immediate declaration of a state of national disaster when it comes to the load shedding. This is supposed to, for instance, eliminate the red tape around procurement when it comes to Eskoms, so that if anything is needed urgently, it can be done without having to go through the steps that it used to, right? Do you have any concerns around that?
Well, I think, along with everybody else, probably, we've seen how even with the state of disaster around the pandemic, how that was still open to widespread corruption, on PPE procurement and the like. So, one does have those concerns at the back of one's mind. One can be hopeful, and one is hopeful that it is getting the attention that it deserves after a long time of neglect. This is probably the last throw of the dice to get the problem sorted out. think listening to the president, listening to the projects that are available, and how we can get the private sector involved. There is the capacity out there to sort out the problem. It's just about getting the money into the right places, and really getting it to work and not being diverted to somebody else's coffers.
And what kind of policies will the banking industry be looking out for this afternoon? Changes to those, or anything around policies that you're looking at this afternoon?
I sound like a stuck record and maybe a one-trick pony, but it's all about growth. Whatever the authorities can do to stimulate growth, be it infrastructure spend, that also will help increase employment and growth over the longer term. It's those kind of things. Banks operate in the economic environment that we're in. If there's no economic activity, if people aren't borrowing to spend and invest in infrastructure, in factories, in their own housing and the like, then the economy is it just stagnates, and there's no place for banks. So banks, I think, just want to see, as we all do, a thriving economy where people are borrowing and lending, and we can employ more and more people.
Yeah,
so really, it's all about growth at the end of the day.
And I think most importantly, those who are borrowing are able to actually pay back those loans instead of being blacklisted, because life is getting so much tougher. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Craig Pheiffer, or rather Pheiffer, is the Chief Investment Strategist at Sasfin Wealth.